Hi, and welcome to the Be Happy, Be Brilliant podcast with myself, Rodolfo Young. From a U.S. Army Special Operations soldier to spending 2 years in meditative silence, I'm now reaching 1 million people around the world, sharing deep insights, practical wisdom, and mindsets to cultivate happiness and success. Join me as we journey into relationships, spirituality, business, philosophy, and self-discovery. Enjoy the podcast and be sure to share the conversation and topics and keep the ripple flowing. Today we're talking about habits and the heart. I got to give a talk on this recently in the Rio Grande Valley, Texas. And the first thing that I asked the audience that was there was I asked about their New Year's resolutions, about the goals that we all get to set. Because, you see, we often go after these things we want to achieve in life and we have different motivations. Sometimes it's because we just want to prove to ourselves or others that we can do it. Sometimes it's because there's this thing we really, really want in life and we think if we set the intention and the goal strong enough that we can go get it. And that really is the beginning step. And other times, and I would almost venture to say most of the time, it's because we're trying to avoid or get rid of, let go, eliminate, and essentially block out something about our lives, some condition, behavior, action, activity that we don't like, that we're not happy about. We probably have massive self-judgment about for ourselves. And that, I think, is where New Year's resolutions especially are more motivated by. You see, we'll have the motivation at the beginning of each year to say, okay, this time I'm going to get it right, because we're judging ourselves for having gotten it wrong before. And the problem is this, that the more we focus on the things we're trying to avoid, the things we're trying to change or get rid of, then what we do is we bring all our attention and all our energy and all our focus on those negative things. And guess what grows the most? The thing that is nurtured the most, the thing that you are watering the most, the thing you're giving the most energy to. So of course it's going to be those very negative aspects you are trying to get rid of. What I often say to my coaching clients is, the very first thing I ask them, I say, what do you want? Because I need to know so we have a place to guide the coaching session. But I always ask that same question, what do you want? And it's remarkable to me because the answer almost always comes in the very opposite of what I've asked. They say, well, I don't want this, and I don't want to stress anymore, and I don't want to struggle for money, and I don't want to struggle with my health, and I don't want to feel lonely, and I don't want to, all these don't, want, don't. And you see, here's the problem. The subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, the part of us that doesn't, we're not knowingly thinking about, it doesn't know how to process negatives. It doesn't know how to take the don't or none of this or not this. It ignores those words and it just looks for the key words. It's kind of like if you went on Google and you typed in, don't show me pink elephants. What kind of results do you think Google's going to give you? It'll show you a lot of pink elephants. The unconscious mind is the exact same way. It's looking at the key words and it's bringing that up because it needs a reference point. It needs a reference point because the conscious mind says, don't think of the pink elephant. And so the conscious mind says, don't think of this. And the unconscious mind goes, of what? And the conscious mind says, that pink elephant. Oh, too late. You thought of the pink elephant. And you see, it doesn't work. If we're focusing on the negative things that we're trying to get rid of or avoid, then we almost always will end up drawing those very things in towards us. We start to attract them into our lives. Now, some of you may have done things like manifestation boards or vision boards or affirmations where you're trying to draw things into your life. And the funny thing is we start to draw things in. We do all these different, tools and techniques and processes. But the question is, are you ready for it to come? Because most of the time that knock comes, the opportunity at the door, and you open it up and you see all these beautiful gifts that have been left there for you as resources and tools and whatever else you're asking for. And you might have a thought deep inside your mind that goes, whoa, not yet. I wasn't ready. I meant for like a week from now or a month from now when I feel I'm worthy of receiving it. Now, here's the problem. When we're talking about habits and the heart, we have to first drop into what it means to be in the heart, because these things that I've been talking about where we focus on the negative and we also don't really give ourselves permission. We don't believe we're worthy to receive the very things we're asking for. is why our New Year's resolutions, our goals, our habits that we are trying to do don't ever really achieve much. They don't reach the success that we want because our mindset and our recognition of our heart's worth, our recognition of our deepest value of who we really are isn't really being seen first, because that has to be clarified. That has to be cleared. You have to weed the garden before you can plant the seeds of your oasis. So I'm going to say right now, the first thing you're going to want to do though is figure out, where are you? Where are you starting from? What's the start point of this journey you're going to take in the growth of your habits, the growth of your process, the growth of yourself? You have to know where you are at now. And I call that acceptance. A lot of times we think of acceptance and we think of it as being essentially being okay with whatever's happening. That's tolerance. It's very different. Acceptance is the recognition of the reality of now. It's noticing that you're in this moment, and whatever the moment is, whether you like it or not, it's the reality. You see, when we ignore that, when we deny the reality, we don't have a concrete ability to change it, or to allow it to change, or to move from it, to take the steps from that place, because we're in our imagination thinking we're somewhere else. It doesn't work. So the first step is acceptance. The second step is permission. I mentioned it a moment ago. We have to give ourselves permission, not just to receive, but more than that, we have to give ourselves permission to allow for change. To allow for change. Notice I didn't say to make change, to cause change, to force change. No. To allow for change. See, change is automatic. Nature is always changing. It's just what it does. You know, when you were 3 years old to the year or age that you are now, something happened, right? It happened automatically. Would you say that you're the same exact body, the same exact mind, the same exact emotions, the same exact consciousness as you were at that moment of 3 years old to where you are now? I doubt it. Yet, you didn't consciously think, I think I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be like this and I'm going to do this. And tomorrow I think I'll think this way and I'll grow my arm out a little bit. And no, consciously it didn't happen. But unconsciously, naturally, change was occurring. And so we don't have to force change. What we have to do is set the direction of our path and then allow change to take us. You see, change is the momentum. It's like the current, the river's current that's moving you along your life. And all you have to do is give permission. Stop holding on to the banks of the river. Let go. Let go and let yourself flow. You see, that's how it works. We first have to accept where we're at, and we might accept, oh, look, I'm holding on to these negative beliefs, these limitations, these habits that aren't working for me, but are working against me. And in that acceptance, you let it go. And that's your permission. You allow yourself to change. It's a beautiful, amazing thing that can happen. And as you start to flow down the river, you're going to notice something. You might start to play. You might start to yell out with glee because you're happy. And that, my friends, is expression. And expression is the final bit. When we start to express, it's the actions we take and the way we allow ourselves to be witnessed in them. You see, a habit is only as good as the amount of activity and action you consciously place on it consistently. And I mean that consistently is the most important piece of it. You have to be consistent in the conscious choices that you make each day. I'll give you a more practical example. If you wake up every day and you hit the snooze bar, and then you hit it again, and then you hit it again, and then you hit it again, and on like the sixth one, and some people, I know, these people exist, they'll have set their alarms for 8 or 9 alarms the night before, just so that they're ready and they don't have to hit the snooze bar. They can just let it do its one ring and then it'll do the next one 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later. The problem there is you've set a habit, and that habit is don't get out of bed. What if you set a new habit? And that habit instead becomes get out of bed. You see, when you start to consistently do that, day in, day out, day in, day out, what happens is you start getting more done, right? Your life starts to change in direction. And you see, there's 2 directions that life can take. There's a direction where, everything's going great, everything's feeling successful, you're happy, you've got the right relationship, all of the stuff, and it feels like it's going up, right? It's going up, but this is a world and reality of duality, which means that what goes up also must come down. But that's not a problem if you've learned how to fall with grace. If you know that there are the ups and downs, then you can go with it, but you can focus on the up. And you can cultivate the habits that take you up instead of unconsciously letting the ones take you down. But that also means you don't have the luxury of stopping. You see, a lot of times we want to do something once, twice, reach a certain place, a destination, and say, I'm done, now I can relax and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But the problem is, the moment you stop moving upward, you start moving downward. The moment you stop living, you start dying. The moment you stop striving, you stop surviving. And this is the problem, you see. We think we can do it all once and be done. We're a little lazy in the mind. But let me teach you something here about habits. If you do them step by step, daily, consistently, eventually they have the compound effect like a snowball. Like, you know, the old snowball effect of this idea that if it starts rolling and gaining more snow, it gets stronger, faster, bigger, and it goes almost automatically. This is what we want to reach when we're doing habits consciously and positively, is in the same way that we kind of created a momentum of our unconscious habits, we want to create a momentum of our conscious habits. On average, it takes 40 to 60 days in order to really do that, to get it so that it's in the subconscious mind and starts running automatically. But that means you have to dedicate and commit to doing certain habits consistently every single day. Now, choose the things that are going to allow you to do that. That means that your daily habit, your step-by-step, doesn't need to be some grand gesture. A lot of times, one of the other reasons we fail at our habits or our goals is we set it too high. We go, okay, today maybe I want to get really fit and I can only lift 10 pounds. And then I'm thinking, well, tomorrow I want to lift 20, and then the next day 30, and the next day 40. That's a little too fast. Your body can't keep up. We have to be realistic and make it more a goal that we can keep. So, with fitness or many other ones, I would often recommend that you actually designate a time frame. You say, I'm going to work out 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes every single day. You do the time frame that works for you. Or if you want to learn to write more, you're writing a book, write 10 pages a day. Or you want to read 10 pages a day of another book that you're trying to read. Or whatever it is that you're trying to do, that you set a goal and then you create habits to get to it, do it in little partition steps. Because what you can do then is you can have the sense of achievement along the way. And that sense of achievement drives the momentum, and that momentum suddenly starts deriving the power of it, and all of a sudden you are reaching the goals and it becomes unconscious, and you keep going because you've set the habit into your subconscious mind. Now, we talked a little bit about this idea of acceptance and this idea of permission and this idea of expression. And we've talked a little bit about habits. And now, how do we tie that into the heart? Well, here's where I believe the greatest power of any habit or any goal or any direction that we seek is that we don't choose that direction from our mind, but we choose that direction from where our heart is leading us. And you see, our mind is looking backwards because it can only compare to the past. And that's why we're often looking into our history. And from our history, we're afraid of making the same mistakes, which is why we're running and running and running and trying to avoid the things that we have set our New Year's resolutions to avoid. But when we drop into our hearts, it's almost as if there's a magnetic shift, and in our heart we turn around from our history into our future, and we start being propelled by the desire and passion and purpose of what we want to achieve in our life, and what service we want to be in, and how we want to affect the world around us, and how we want to be happy. You see, you can't be in your heart and not be happy, but you can definitely be in your mind and not be happy. But when you drop into the heart, it automatically shifts you. You start to move in a direction that is forward instead of backwards. And I'll give you one last tip before I wrap up today. When we're talking here about habits in the heart. This is the biggest tip I can give anybody, and it will help you in the progress and process of making this shift from seeing the world as that which is what you're trying to avoid or what you fear, and moving more into what you want and desire, and the habits that you get to form to create that life for yourself. The key is curiosity. Curiosity. If you can become curious about what's coming next instead of fearful, then you will open and broaden your possibilities and opportunities. If you can become curious to the point that you can let yourself know that you don't know, you can actually admit and say, I don't know what's coming. You see, that's the most powerful thing you could ever say because it opens the pathway. When you say, I think I know, then you start controlling it and trying to do all sorts of things to avoid the fears of what you think might come, and then that causes you not to go anywhere. But instead, be curious. And in that curiosity, like the wonder of a child, let yourself start to glide and flow down that river because you finally let go of all the limitations and beliefs that were stopping you, and you started allowing the habits that would carry you. You've been listening to the Be Happy, Be Brilliant podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you've enjoyed the episode. You can find more resources and content online at www.rodolfoyoung.com.